Welcome to One on One. I'm your host, Lee Adams, and today we're going to talk about the 1970s, but even before that. But in the 1970s in Pittsburgh, people do not realize that we had the most amazing sports time in the history of this city, where the Pittsburgh Pirates went to 2 World Series, won 2. The Pittsburgh Steelers went to 4 Super Bowls, won 4. And we have one of the stars of that era here with us today, and we're very excited. He's a guy that grew up in the Deep South, Macon, Georgia, and he found his way to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'd like to introduce you to Mr. J.T. Thomas, the cornerback of the Pittsburgh Steelers during the 1970s. JT, it's great to have you here today.
Lee, it's my pleasure, man. Thank you for having me, definitely.
You're welcome. You know, a lot of people in Pittsburgh grew up in Pittsburgh and they stay in Pittsburgh, and then a lot of people from Pittsburgh move out and go somewhere else, and then they come back to Pittsburgh.
Definitely.
But you did not grow up in Pittsburgh. You grew up in Macon, Georgia.
Yep.
And are there any celebrities that come from Macon, Georgia?
Oh, yeah. I mean, fortunately, I guess, and excitingly, quite a few. Matter of fact, Otis Redding.
Otis Redding.
Yeah, I knew Otis. As a matter of fact, I was.
You knew him?
I knew his father and Otis. I played at Otis Redding's father's church. I was a piano player. Also, the James Brown was always in Macon because the recording studio was there. So I would see him at the talent shows on Saturday morning. We had the Allman Brothers. I went to high school with them, and
You went to high school with the Allman Brothers?
Yep.
Oh my, one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, definitely. And one of the Los Angeles Lakers basketball player, Norm Nixon, his brother and I'm a couple years older than Norm. His brother and I was best friends, but Norm Nixon is from Macon, Georgia. Let me see who goes on. The baseball player, Johnny Blue Moon Odoms.
Yeah.
And there are other celebrities, jazz. Oh yeah, people from Macon, Georgia. So it's that small town produced a lot of quote celebrities, I should say.
And
Definitely.
4-time Super Bowl champ J.T. Thomas come from Macon, Georgia.
Most definitely.
Yeah, you make Macon proud. So Macon, Georgia was not like growing up in Pittsburgh.
Of course not. No,
And
definitely.
so this is the Deep South, you're African American. Talk about that.
Well, you know, I grew up in segregation. You know, Jim Crow was prevalent in the South, and obviously.
I just want to ask you something about
Yes.
that. People hear Jim Crow that didn't live Jim Crow, it didn't affect them. What is Jim Crow?
Well, Jim Crow is actually segregation that came after slavery, after the Reconstruction period, where you know, there was a place for blacks and white. Matter of fact, at age 3 or 4, I could read the word color in white before I could write my name, because we were taught in Sunday school to read those words on water fountains. And
So white was the first word, a most important word for you to know. Is that what
well,
you're saying?
well, no, white and colored, because everything was labeled. So you had to know where you had access to, where you were allowed, be it a water fountain, be it a restaurant, or be it just entrance into a store. So at 3 and 4, you were taught to read those 2 words. And I couldn't even write my name, but I recognized those words. Yeah. So that was the segregation of the South, and it was the norm.
So who was in your family?
Oh, my family, you know, sister, you know, my father, my mother, and there was, I had 2 sisters and a younger brother. I'm the oldest of 4, but at the same time, my aunt, my mother's sister, and she had a son. We were the same age, matter of fact, 2 months apart, and my grandmother. So that was our household, you know, comprising a 3-bedroom house.
Did your parents have a choice as to where to send you to school?
Not in terms of any school. I mean, the schools were segregated. I could have gone to the black public schools, but my mother had an opportunity, or I had an opportunity, to go to a Catholic school. Now, this Catholic school was segregated for all black students, but it was ran by the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. And in the South back then, there were a lot of Catholic parishes had been, I guess, accepted after the Civil War to teach and direct African Americans and also American Indians. So that was part of my opportunity, was to attend St. Peter Claver School in Macon, Georgia. Like I say, it was ran by the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. But all the students were black, and I think there were 2 lay teachers that was in kindergarten and first grade, and went to from kindergarten to the 8th grade.
And the teachers were all nuns?
They were mostly nuns, yeah. So my influence really at an early age were not only from my neighborhood, my family, my church, but also from the Catholic environment too, because those nuns were very instrumental in my teaching and framing my thoughts. And I learned at a very early age, which most kids in the South, they didn't learn this. I learned that all black folks weren't good and all white folks weren't bad. So I had a different perspective than most kids in the South being at St. Peter Claver School. Now,
So wait a minute, you're saying that a lot of kids in the South, if they were white, they were taught that all black people were bad,
or
if they were black, all white people were bad.
well, no, it wasn't that bad, but it was a negative definition. You were defined through your blackness.
I see.
No matter how good your talent was, what you could do, your pigmentation defined you. So if you was white, you was right. You was black, you was secondary, inferior. Not that blacks and white weren't in harmony. It was kind of confusing because blacks and white lived in harmony in the South. But there are times where you had to know what your place was. I could swim with you in the creek, but not at the pool. We could drink out the same water fountain at the back of the house, but not at the one at Sears and Roebuck's.
So you had to know where your place was.
You know your place was. And it's not saying that, all white people were evil and mean. They were not. They were not. But you lived in a culture where the racism was the systemic structure. And it's just like the fish. Put it this way, I use this analogy in terms of all the fish in the oceans are not sharks. They're not. So if you look at sharks as the racist aspect of it, well, all the fish is not shark and bad. But all the fish benefit from what the shark does, from the system. So that's the kind of environment. There's sharks out there, there's racism out there. But it's not saying that all white people are mean and bad, that they were not.
What were the color of the nuns?
The nuns were white. They're all white, and they were from they're from Jersey, New York, not from the South, maybe Europe. Of that, yeah, they were white, and basically this order, the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament, was formed by one of the Drexel family daughters out of Philadelphia, wealthy. I think started this order, for the most part.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So was that your first real opportunity to interact with white people, was with the nuns?
Yes, and I think that was very critical in terms of allowing me to adjust and move into integration when I left there, because when I did leave there, I was prepared to deal with white America, going into that whole desegregation integration process at age 14, because that was the heart of the civil rights movement. So we was marching, protesting, and mind me that I'm in the Black Baptist Church, where I'd seen Dr. King come down from Atlanta. So we're into the civil rights movement, at 10, 11 years old, those type of things. And so basically, although I was there, the civil rights movement was a part of my life also at the same time.
Did Dr. Martin Luther King ever come to Macon?
Oh yeah. I had the opportunity a couple of times to see Dr. King. One of the things that I saw him once, he would have the young kids come to the front of the church and sit, and he kind of built your hope in terms of about access. It was saying like one day you'll be able to go into a restaurant to sit on you know, you had that time to sit on the front of the bus or drink out of a water fountain, you know, those type of things. And for a young kid, wow, you know, I'd never been into a restaurant in my life. The first time I went to a restaurant, I'm 16 years of age, you know, for the most part.
So this is the 1950s in America.
Well, 50s and 60s. I was born in the 50s, so you know, at this time, you know, it's in the mid 50s. You know, I started that when I was 5 years old in the Catholic school.
You were born what, 51?
51, yes.
Okay.
So it's in the mid 50s, going into the early 60s. You know, I'm an adolescent, but you know, in 1960 61, at the heart of the civil rights movement.
So
yes.
you're in a church, and Dr. Martin Luther King walks in, and he's talking to you.
Well, you have to understand back then, Dr. King and Atlanta was the hub. We're like about an hour from Atlanta. So obviously, and the civil rights movement was in the churches, so they would have mass meetings in the South back then. So you go from one church to another. You know, Andy Young will come in.
Who's the mayor of Atlanta?
Right, the mayor of Atlanta. You have, I'm trying to think, I can't think of the...
There was some leaders in the civil rights
so
movement.
quite a few of them, and you knew them but they was ministers, so it was kind of a normal thing at that time to be there, not because, you know, Dr. King at that time, we knew who he was, but obviously the prominence that we deal with today wasn't there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's one of the greatest leaders in the history of this country.
No doubt about it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, what a shame what happened to him. But so, you know, we have talked in the past and to get prepared for our interview here, and you said something to me about when democracy started. So if I go up to people on the street and say, when did democracy start in this country? I think we're going to get some different answers.
Almost definitely.
So I want to get your answer. When do you feel democracy started?
I think democracy was launched in 1964, 1965 when the Civil Rights Act. That was the first time we experienced democracy because at that time there's no access. You know, that was exciting, you know, for me to have access to a Burger King. I'd never been into a Burger King. I was at the back door knocking, or not being able to use the bathroom when we traveled in the South. You know, you use the woods. You can get gasoline, but you couldn't use the bathroom. So in 1964 is when we, as Black Americans, had access to the normal public facilities, the bathrooms, stores, what have you. Yeah.
So when you hear people talk about the good old days, well, those good old days were different for you.
Yeah, they weren't good old days. I think the good old days they're referring to is when white control had excess power, and I think that comes out of a fear or some social status anxiety that exists even in America today. I think you look at America today, you know, everybody's looking for dominance as opposed to looking towards mutual interests.
Collaboration.
Yeah, collaboration together, you know, definitely.
So you're growing up in the Deep South. You don't have access. You have to learn what the word white and colored is so that you know where you can go. You had to know your space, is what you're saying. And so who influenced you at that school?
Well, at the school, I think what happened, about 9 or 10, then I had a speech impediment, so the nuns...
And what was your speech impediment?
I stuttered. Yeah.
Stuttered?
Yeah, I was stuttered. I was shy. You know, when you're a kid like that, people make fun of you. So even in my black church, my black community, you know, I was I'm going to stay away because I'm not going to be picked on and made fun of. So so my personality had not evolved yet. So the sisters, they hired me to work in the convent. And at the time, you know, I was extra money. I would cut grass, clean the convent, etc. But during my lunch break, they would come out and at various times and teach me to speak and how to breathe, you know, in terms of talking. I would, you know, when you stutter, you don't breathe. It's kind of like you're just going to run on sentence. And so that was part of the process there and giving me that confidence just to speak and probably to develop my social skills and gain the confidence that I didn't have.
How valuable. I just want to pull it back just a moment. I know someone very close to me was a stutterer as a young person. And so can you just explain what that's like to be in that space? Everybody's speaking their way, and then you have this impediment. What's it like for you to go through that?
Well, you walk in a bubble of fear because you're constantly wondering if you're going to be, picked on, made fun of, or just kind of embarrassed. So you have a tendency to withdraw from people, and I did. You become a loner per se. You don't get involved in conversations. You kind of judge who you hang around with or who will accept you. And so basically, I was a wallflower in life, for a long time until I gained that confidence.
And so those nuns helped you through that.
Most definitely, most definitely. They saw something in me, I guess, that I didn't see. But so did my mother. I think that's why she sent me there. She saw something that needed to be developed. So they did, and really I went through that process. But then they taught me, probably prepared me for how to deal with the America that I had no idea I was walking into. Also, I was one day having a lunch, and Sister Gemma, my third and fourth grade teacher, she comes out and she had a piece of paper. I had no idea what she was going to do with it. So she asked me to write something about my family on this piece of paper. So I wrote who my mother and father were, sisters and brothers, and where we lived at, etc., on this piece of paper. And it was in my family, and that was it. So she asked me to read the line back to her. So I read this. I'm J.T. Thomas. I love my mother and father. I got 2 sisters and brothers, and we live in the west side of Macon, Georgia. Okay. So she said, now, I want you to read between the lines. I said, between the lines. I wrote one line, sister, She said, read between the lines. So I read the line again. She said, no, read between the lines. And I only wrote one line. And she said to me, I was getting frustrated, she said, between the lines are the things that you didn't tell me. I said, what didn't you tell me? I said, well, yeah. My aunt also lived with me. My first cousin, we're the same age. My grandmother, we got a dog named Skip. And my dad is an aircraft refueler at the base. She said, those are the things that you didn't tell me, but those are the things between the lines. So I felt pretty good, and it gave me perspective how to look at things as opposed to on the surface. Well, next week, Mother Josepha, the principal, who's next to my mother, the only woman who used to put fear in me, she comes out and sit down. I'm thinking we're going to talk about something or go through some speech, therapy here. She pulled this piece of paper out, and she said, JT, did you write this? I said, yes, Mother. And she said, well, I want you to read what you wrote. Well, I said, I know where this is going. So I read the line. And she said, okay, well, read between the lines. Oh, I got very cute and smart. I added some more stuff to it. I said, I go to the Unionville Baptist Church. I play the piano for the little boys choir, and stuff like that. And I told them about my 2 bikes. I had 2 bicycles or whatever. She said, that's nice. She said, now, read behind those lines. So I read between the lines, added some more stuff to it. And she says, I said, behind the lines. I flipped the paper over. I said, Mother, I didn't write anything behind the lines at all. She said, read behind the lines. I'm about to cry because she intimidated me anyway. I said, Mother, I didn't write anything behind the lines. And then she said, listen. She said, behind the lines are the things that you don't want to talk about. Behind the lines are the things that you're afraid of. Behind the lines are the things that you don't want anyone to know. And from that point there, it gave me a perspective of how to view life. also how to protect myself in life, how to deal with people, because we deal with things on the surface. And at that early age, about 10, I started looking at life different, people different. I started listening their words, their syntax, their tonality. And I didn't realize I was developing skills on how to provide in a jungle that I was going out to. It's like crossing the Jordan River. I knew what was in the river, and there hadn't been any prerequisites out there. Even with Dr. King, they were out on the frontier out there, but no one had a how-to book. You know, even when integration came about, there's no one to show you the how-to. So as a young adolescent, young teen, you're walking out here with what? Only thing they could do is pray for you. They had no knowledge of how to experience or walk into that world of where Jim Crow was refusing to crumble, you know. And so it was very challenging, but those nuns gave me a tool in terms of how to survive, a tool how to deal with people, and to read my environment, almost like the animals in the wild. They develop if you are a prey, you have sensitivity before the danger even shows up, because you develop that
Interesting
ear.
analogy.
Yeah.
And so what made you so scared of Sister Josepha?
Mother Josepha, just her look and tonality. Matter of fact, she was, I found out I was there, she was also the teacher of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, when his name was Lou Alcindor. I didn't know that she had taught him. She had a picture she pulled out, this tall, lanky kid, you know. So, you know, and at that time, he was, I guess, going out of high school in the college, and she had this picture of him, and his name was Lou Alcindor at the time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So, you know, so that was...
Big guy.
A big guy, you know, so...
7-footer.
Yeah, at that time, but he was going from high school maybe to college at that time.
So
but,
she taught at his school?
Yeah, taught him. She knew him very well, obviously. So she had some influence in his life also. But, you know, she was just her stern look, no nonsense, and I don't know, just something about her.
So her and your mother struck fear in you.
Yeah. My mother, not only fear, but my mother was probably my rock. My mother was my biggest cheerleader. She prepared me for the process too, the integration. What she did was very interesting. I'm 14 at this time, and myself and 12 other African Americans will be integrating our junior high school in Macon, Georgia. And in Macon, the only schools that were co-ed were the two black schools. The white schools correlated, so I don't know how they pulled that off. And the school that I went to was not only correlated, it was a military school, public school. So I mean, that's Georgia. But what she did was very daunting. And I was going to play football, you know, because my goal was to leave the Catholic school and go to the black school with all my friends, because I'd never gone to school with them, you know, I mean, my whole life. So I'm happy about this.
That's what you wanted to do.
That's what I want to do. But Mother Josepha had called my mom and said, listen, they're integrating schools here in Macon, and I think it'd be a great idea if JT go to one of the white schools. Well, when those two get together, what I think, it doesn't matter.
It's game over.
Yeah, so I said, well, if I'm going there, I can play football there too. And so I you know, ended up going there, and really, but my mother said, listen, you shouldn't play football. You're too small. They're going to kill you out there, you know. She said, but
You're too small, you're going to get killed.
you know, he's going to kill you out there. You know? So she didn't want me to play at all. Matter of fact, even when I played, I think my mother only saw me play. She would get in the bed and listen to it on radio in the bed. She only saw me play. She couldn't stand 3 times, even in college.
Really?
Yeah, and pro, she just could not.
3 times total.
Well, that was in high school. She would watch it on television in the pros. She saw me at one Super Bowl, but for her to watch that baby out there was just,
She went to one Super Bowl.
Yeah, mhm.
Yeah.
But didn't like the idea. It was just so physical for her. But how she prepared me for that was my mother's a very spiritual woman, and what she did, she said since you're gonna go out there and play, she got a Bible. Mother's very biblically aggressive, and so she flipped the Bible over and she said to me, she said, "You repeat after me." I'm 14. I sit on the floor. She turned the Bible and she say, "Be anxious for nothing." You say that whenever something come up, in your life and you're afraid of something, just don't be anxious for nothing.
Be anxious for nothing.
Yeah, don't be anxious for nothing. Have no anxiety for it, okay? Then she flipped the Bible again, she say, "Go to God boldly."
Go to God boldly.
Go to God. I said, okay, go to God boldly. And she says, your motto in life is, "I can." I say, "I can. She
I
say,
can.
Yeah, so those, and she said, here's the 27th Psalm. You read this before every game, before every problem, every test. You read the 27th Psalm. So I said, okay. And I did. I did that. So when I went to Florida State, I'm just kind of jumping ahead here, my first game, as my sophomore year, I'm the first African-American football player to play at Florida State. So I called my mother that night before the game, and she was talking about, well, because back then I wasn't just playing for me. I was playing for Black Americans in the future, the Deion Sanders that was behind me, all those guys that were coming in. And the whole idea, if I didn't make it, because the whole idea, it was so, well, they cannot play, they've been as Blacks, they cannot compete on the athletic field or the academic classroom. That was, the motif that was out there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I called my mother the night before the game, and I called on these verses. I said, "Mom, I'm a little more sophisticated now. That's 5 years ago. She gave me that crap." I said, "Mama, listen, those verses are not in the Bible. They're too short. It's no be anxious, go to God boldly, I can in the Bible." I say, "Jesus wept" is the shortest verse in the Bible, and I know that one. And she said, "No, baby, they're in there." I said, "No." She said, "Get your Bible." I got my Bible. And she said, "Listen, you turn to Philippians 4:6. I turned to Philippians 4:6. She said, "Read it." And she had given me the night. She said, "Be anxious for nothing." But it says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer, supplication, and with thanksgiving, make your requests known unto God." Blew my mind. She said, "Okay, turn over to Hebrews 4:16." She told me, "Go to God boldly." She said, anytime you go to God boldly. She said, "Read it." And it said, "Let us go boldly to the throne of grace that we may obtain mercy and find grace in our time of need." Now, this is the night before my big game. She's blowing me out the water. She said, "Turn back to Philippians 4, okay, and go down to verse 13. My motto, I can. Well, yeah, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And she had given me these nuggets at 14 that I was chewing on.
She condensed them.
She condensed them because she had given me 40. I don't know what she was talking about.
And you called her out and said it's not in there.
It's not in there. Because my mom was always making up stuff. And when I was a kid, I went to the Catholic school. I didn't know any of the nursery rhymes, like the Three Little Pigs. And, I didn't know nothing of those stories because my mother always made up stories about me. I was called Kool-Aid Boy, Jughead, and I was the heroes in all the stories.
Kool-Aid Boy.
Yeah, I just love Kool-Aid. So she had these stories all about me, and so I knew nothing about Mary Had a Little Lamb and Jack and Jill. I didn't. Those all new to me when I went to school.
So you thought your mother was just telling you stories, but she backed it up with some verses.
Yeah. I thought she was just making verses up, making things
Right.
up. I had no idea the biblical and the spiritual content and the foundation that she was laying in my life to survive and get through the challenges there.
So going to Blessed Sacrament, that's what it was called?
No, St. Peter Claver's.
St. Peter Claver's.
St. Peter Claver's School. Yes, it's still there. St. Peter Claver is still there. Yeah.
So who was the big influence on your spiritual development?
I would say my mother and my church. I grew up in a church where there was a lot of black men deacons at that time that were in our lives. The pastor of the church. So I grew up from all my life in the Baptist church. My grandmother was spiritual. She's in the Primitive Baptist church. So we were in the normal missionary Baptist church or the Primitive Baptist church, or either there was a sanctified tent. One street back, we was going over to the sanctified tent, called the Pentecostal at today. So that was part of our environment in the South. The church was very big in our environment. We was at church 3 or 4 days a week.
So you grew up in that environment. How did you evolve through your life spiritually? Did that give you a foundation that you still work with today, or what impact did that have?
Yeah, most definitely. It gave me the virtues, and it gave me a dependency and strength that I didn't have in myself, but I didn't find in people either. So yeah, it took away fear at an early, like in the civil rights movement. That whole movement when I was coming up, always told us that God did not give us the spirit of fear. So I never feared death. I never feared the KKK. I never feared the dogs. I never feared the water hose. All that wasn't a fear process. And you think about it, even when I integrated college, they brought in 4 athletes with me. I was the first one to play, though. But we were in that environment. But we were talking about, a few months ago, I was talking to these guys. We never sensed fear. It was there. I mean, the protest was there. The Klans were there. You name it, it was there. But I never had any fear of that, and I think that had to do with what my focus was really on. It was I never feared man at anything, and I think that's the difference. But that has to do with the spiritual virtues, the spiritual strength that was instilled at a very early, and even the Catholicism. Although I wasn't Catholic, I knew their religion very well, and I knew the praying and that whole religion. There's some good aspect about their Christian religion. Obviously, there's certain practices that I didn't adhere to, but all that was a part of it.
Yeah. I want to say this. My father was a Pittsburgh City police officer, and this was during the 60s. And he worked the Martin Luther King riots.
Okay.
And I believe that he likely worked with a lot of police officers that had some racism in them.
Yeah.
But my father died at a young age, but I'm so appreciative of him because he taught us, just like you have been told, he taught us that you be honest with everybody, you respect everybody, and you treat people the way you want to be treated. So he never spoke a word about color or anything. And so I had never heard that. I heard some older white people talking about the N-word and this and that, but that wasn't my father. My father was an influence. So I moved to Atlanta in 1982, and I bought a house in Tucker, Georgia.
Okay.
And I'm there the first week I get there, JT. Someone slides a piece of paper underneath my doormat, and I come home from work. I open it up, and they're having a KKK bonfire at Stone Mountain, and they had Herschel Walker with this white girl and saying, "We can't have this." And I thought to myself, well, what's going on? I mean, because I was taught, our most impressionable years is what really is a big part of who we become.
Sure, definitely, yeah.
And so when I'm taught that way, I'm taught you respect whoever's in front of you, no matter what color, what religion. And I'm so proud of my father for standing up because his environment was saying other things. And so when I saw that, it just appalled me And this is 1982.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you grew up in the 50s. And so
60, yeah.
that's why this is fascinating to me, that you grew up in the Jim Crow South. And people hear Jim Crow, but they don't really know what that means. Well, you lived in it.
Oh, yeah.
You lived in it. And then you come to Pittsburgh, and we're going to get to that later.
Yeah.
But you also said to me that when you were younger, that you were not getting picked in sports games. Like they were having pickup games. You didn't get picked.
Oh, no. Well, no, it's
So
understand.
that would surprise a lot of people to hear this.
Well, really, my interest into sports was not by the love of sports, not by the fact that I was athletic. It was the fact that I got into sports were really to take my father out. My father was an abuser. Used to beat my mom. And I'm the oldest of four, and I'm a small kid, 4 or 5. You seeing this going on, and he. The reason for that, you have to look at his background. My father, mother died when he was 12. I'm not sure he knew who his father was, and he was raised by his grandmother and his aunts, about 6 aunts. So he's in an environment where there wasn't a lot of male influence. He was around women. So obviously his perspective and also developing the manhood didn't happen. No one deposited manhood into my father. You can't give what you don't have. So, and that's not making an excuse for him, but he used to abuse my mother. So what happened?
Physically abused.
Physically, yeah, beat her.
And you saw this.
Yeah, saw it, and I couldn't do nothing but cry, and so anyway, my father was not only aircraft fuel, he was an excellent mechanic. I mean, a genius mechanic. I mean, my house was always had Harley Davidson trucks, motorcycles, people coming by, and he worked at the base with a lot of people. So this was his part-time job. But what he would do, he would solicit the football players in high school to help him move cars. I would see them pick up cars. My father was a strong guy, big guy. Pick up cars and transmissions and put them on blocks and stuff. So in my 10-year-old mind, I figured that, well, if I become a football player, I can be strong and big and get him.
So you didn't play football for the love of football.
No, my goals, I play the piano. I'm a piano guy. I'm playing the piano. So, at the Catholic school, there's no sports team. But all my kids in my neighborhood, they play sports at elementary school. So they don't pick JT to play sports. They'll pick me if the dog ain't there. If they pick me, I'm just running down the field, basketball court. I'm scared of the ball. So basically, what I did, I went in and started watching the Green Bay Packers of the 60s. And I know nothing about football. So I'm looking at the Green Bay Packers, and I noticed then the secondary. I noticed these guys running backwards. And one was Herb Adderley. He wore number 26, and Willie Wood, the free safety, wore number 24. And I thought it was so cool them running backwards, I only worn those 2 numbers too, 24, 26 my whole life. But anyway,
Really?
yeah. So I would, after watching them, not understanding football, I went to get the papers, the funny papers on Sunday, and I'll put it on my shirt, make shoulder pads. And I'm outside running backwards, because I just, my mom see me running in the trees, falling all down. And that was my inspiration there. But they started playing pickup ball at the Catholic school at recess. And I'm about in the 5th or 6th grade, and I was a wide receiver then, and I had the knack. I could run. I was fast because I was afraid of dogs, and dogs always chasing me, whether they were biting or having fun. I didn't know the difference.
You're running from the dogs.
Yeah, I run from dogs anyway, so I had
run
speed.
through a few dogs for myself.
Yeah, and I never liked dogs. So anyway, so I was running from them. But anyway, I developed skills there at the Catholic school, and wasn't aware of it, but I ended up going to, once we integrated, I'm 14, I'm going to the white schools. But my goal is not to play football. No, I don't like football. I mean, but it was a means to an end, to get big and stronger. So I'm in the 9th grade, junior high. I go to the senior high. Now, it's all boys. Now I'm playing football. I've grown 3 inches. I'm in a military school and I got guns. And I've gone hunting. My original, my father's strength. Because I work on his cars. We go hunting, go fishing. But he was an abusive man to my mother. But anyway, so when I get to the 10th grade, I'm excited about the fact that this military thing, I got these guns. I'm walking around with a semi-automatic M1A1 rifle. Wow. And I go to the rifle range the first week there, and the E5 sergeant said, "We want you on the rifle team." But I want to play football. So he and the coach get into it. Well, you say, well, this dude comes in here first week. He 5 points from a sharpshooter. He's a marksman already. I'm 15, because I can shoot. So I ended up playing football, because I figured football can give me that size. I'm going to take this dude out. But anyway, I go through my sophomore year, dealing with the racism there, the whole 9 yards of coaches. Remember, these coaches have never coached any black players before or talked to them. So how do you relate to them? So that dynamics. But ended up, I'm matriculating football during my sophomore, junior year, and I don't realize this. Because that's not my goal. And my mother say, "Baby, why are you playing football? You don't even like football." And
Did you tell your mother why?
no, I didn't tell her why. I said, "I'm quitting next year, Mom. Every year I'm quitting." Because she knows that you don't like football. I know, but what I want.
So she was puzzled.
Yeah, she was baffled. She was baffled. So I know you don't like sports, But I had to go. So I ended up, I'm about 16, 17 years old. I walked in the room once, a little argument going on, but my father had settled down. Even my mother had learned to medicate the situation. Well, I'm not sure what, but my goal is so anal and so focused, I don't notice,
So you're ready to take him out.
Yeah, I'm waiting. Matter of fact, so I walked in the room. My father carried a gun in his pocket too. So anyway, I walked in the room once, and when he was talking loud, and I looked at him, he asked me, "What did you come in here for?" I just looked at him. And I think there was a change in his demeanor or how he looked at me, I think, because now I'm about 5'11", and my father's about 6 feet, 200 pounds, big guy, still a little taller, but I'm more eye to eye with him. So as time commenced and I'm going into my senior year, I'm waiting for the opportunity to take him out.
Physically.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna shoot. I'm gonna kill him.
Oh, you would kill him?
Yeah, I got the guns.
See, I thought you were talking physically.
Oh no,
You
no,
were gonna
oh no,
put it
oh
on
no,
him.
no, because no, because he carried the gun. So no, I had the guns stashed in the house. I knew exactly where they were. We had guns in our house, and I had the guns ready. So I'm sitting there waiting for the sound. Every sound, if someone drops something, I think that's my cue. And you just understand, college is not an option at this time. Integration 65, Civil Rights Bill 64 have been passed, but no schools are recruiting, white schools are recruiting black athletes. I'm in a white school, so no historical black colleges are recruiting me, so I'm not going to college. I ain't thought about it. I have no money to go anyway. So I'm playing sports on a white school. It means nothing in terms of the next level. So what I did, I'm waiting, and all of a sudden, nothing was happening. And I don't realize the transformation that my father is making. And so what happened, he ended up, I noticed he was going to church, and he had us, if we late, he'll leave you. But I still got my eyes on taking him out. And unfortunately, I shouldn't say that. Fortunately, something happened. Guess what happened to him?
What?
He found Jesus. I was pissed.
So you were getting ready to take your father out,
Yeah.
and shoot him dead.
Yeah, because if he touched my mom, yeah.
Because he abused your mother
Yeah.
all those years.
Yeah.
And just as you were getting ready to do that, he found Jesus.
Well, I wasn't aware of that. When I look back on it, he was changing, but I was so focused. I spent 7 years.
With your plan.
Yeah, I started at 10.
Getting ready.
Getting ready. And I was excelling in sports too, but I didn't see, because that wasn't my goal. You know, he was reading newspaper articles. He was putting the trophies in his car. I found out, taking them to the base to show to his friends.
Yeah.
And so I never saw that because my father didn't know how to show love. No one ever showed him love.
Yeah.
You know, I think the first time I hugged him was the year that he. Oh, I'll take that back. I think it was the year I retired from pro football. I never hugged from him. Yeah.
Your first hug was when you retired from the Steelers.
Yeah. 83. I never forget it.
I mean, men back in the day
They
were
did.
stoic.
They're very stoic. Right. They were
My
very
father,
stoic.
your father, stoic.
Yeah, right. So, you know, so that was that progression, but that is how, you know, in the big picture, how things worked. And I looked at how that situation, if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here today. You
Yeah,
know.
so you're mad at Jesus.
Oh yeah, I was mad because I spent all this time here, and then all of a sudden
He
he
flipped the script.
flipped the script. Now that father became a deacon.
Goodness. He really flipped the script.
Oh, big time, yeah. And I'm just kind of like, I don't want to buy this. But at the same time, here I am preparing me to play football at a level that I hadn't dreamed of.
Yeah.
It prepared me with a mindset or determination to task.
How long did your father live?
Father died very young, 59.
59.
Yeah.
Did you ever tell him what you were going to do?
No, I did not.
Did you ever tell your mother?
No, I didn't tell her either.
So-
Because she would have. no way.
Okay, so
No, I
now
didn't.
that you say this, I mean, how does it feel? But you're saying what really was going on inside of you as a teenager. I mean, this is drastic stuff.
yeah,
But then you saw violence, and you
Oh,
saw
yeah.
violence against someone that you loved that was your biggest cheerleader in your life.
Yeah.
So I understand your motive.
oh, yeah, definitely,
right?
yeah.
And so now you're saying this. You know, we talked about this early in our conversations, and I was wondering whether you were going to say this, and you're saying this. How does it feel now to say this?
Well, you know, when I look back over life now, it shows me in terms of how God works and how He can use any situation. And I think part of looking at that situation, it gives me a perspective about how life works, but more so that God can always change the script. So it never, which means I always have joy. And what I mean, joy is not necessarily happiness. You know, joy isn't based, happiness is based on circumstances. Joy is based on something else. It's based on a contentment of assurance, regardless of the situation. So I always have joy.
You always have joy?
Yeah, because joy is not predicated on my circumstances. Yeah, and out of that situation, I can look back and say, well, look at the joy that come out of that situation, because joy has to do with a virtue, a contentment inside here. It has to do with how you viewing life in spite of.
Adversity.
Yeah, joy is not contractual. Contracts have words like, and we like contracts so we can break them. If then, if this happened, then this will happen, or because joy is kind of like a covenantal thing. Covenants have words that we don't like. We don't like words like nevertheless, anyhow, regardless, in spite of. Well, those words are not conditioned on if you do this or you don't do this. You know, we like to say, well, you bring 60, I bring 40, or 50-50. Well, covenants say regardless of what you bring. If you only bring one, I'm bringing 99. So joy is like that. It's not contractual based on circumstances. Regardless, it's there. regardless of the circumstances, you have joy. Joy is an assurance. It's a virtue of confidence that no matter what's going on, you're in a good space. So you can't take my joy. You can take my happiness from me. You can make it get too hot outside and start raining, but you can't take my joy. See?
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So, what now? Why are you telling this story now? This is quite a personal story that many people would just want to sweep under the rug, JT. But you have decided you're going to tell this story now. And what making you do this?
Well, like I say, I've been writing, it's part of my book. I've been writing this book for 10 years.
You're writing a book?
Writing a book, and really I got 10 chapters. The chapters were really completed. The book is titled From the Balcony. And how I came about this title, I shared that with you. Back in the 70s, we were at a nightclub in Heavens. I mean, not in heaven, probably in hell.
I know.
The club was called Heaven.
I know,
Yeah,
'cause I've
downtown.
been there.
Yeah, very
I've been
popular
there.
club. So we were there doing a promotion.
Beautiful place.
Beautiful place. The Steelers and I, a few of the Steelers, and an altercation broke out on the dance floor. And these guys threw a few punches. And so the cop come in, he like about 5'7" with a big cigar, and he yelled, "Turn off this music." They turn off the music and stuff. And these two guys had been fighting, and they threw a few punches, not a real fight. And one of them girlfriend fell and twisted an ankle. So he's asking these two guys, what happened. They got different stories. He asked people on the dance floor, and everyone got different stories. So he said, "Listen, if I don't get the real story, I'm gonna shut this dang place down." Well,
The police officer said
yeah,
that.
he said that. When he said that, it got so quiet that you could hear a cockroach pissing. Anyway, this young girl on the balcony said, "Officer, I saw what happened." So everyone went to the balcony. She said, "Well, the dance floor was packed, and this drunk gentleman came through the dance floor, bumped into this gentleman, hit the guy there, and he started a chain reaction." And the officer said, "Well, where is the drunk?" "Oh, he left 20 minutes ago." And at that point, I thought about what was happening there, where everyone on the dance floor had a different perspective or no perspective. But on the balcony, she had a very, very unique perspective of what's going on, and an accurate perspective. And I thought about that, how we looked at life. We all love the dance floor. A lot of bumping, grinding, good time, but we don't see anything. It's very shallow there. But on the balcony, you get a different perspective. Matter of fact, you take most of your five senses out of the situation. So when I went into, I always thought about that, looking at life that way. It goes back to what these sisters taught me about reading the line between I'm tying all this together in my mind in terms of life. So basically, when I got into got in the restaurant business, I would on Monday morning would meet all our managers, and we're about 50 managers, and to solve problems, always said, "Let's go to the balcony." And they said, "T, going to the balcony. We going to the balcony." Well, the balcony, you come out of all the mess, you can see stuff better. Then you go back to the dance floor, and so I started looking at life that way. And I probably always have. Going to the balcony, you take all the other emotions out, what you feel, touch, and all that kind of stuff, and you see things differently. And when I started looking at my life from the balcony, a lot of things happened, but what really the cause effect I missed. The balcony, wait a minute, even while we won 4 Super Bowls, great coaches, great players, all this other hoopla, but to the back, there are things that we miss that people knew nothing about. And I found out when I started looking at my life, why things happen, the balcony reveals different things. It's a maturity that you get, but it's also kind of a divine perspective. You take all the clutter out on the balcony. And what makes this book difficult, every time I go to the balcony, cataracts are removed. That's the wisdom, knowledge, and growth. Well, oh, I didn't see that. Oh, I didn't see him. I didn't see her. I didn't see the role that he or she played in this. And they weren't even talked about, which makes this book difficult because you're always evolving in your discernment. And that's what it does. And I think that's the spiritual aspect of us anyway. I think we are designed to constantly discern and pull back layers because we never arrive at that reality, in life. When I was playing ball, there was one season that Chuck Nozzle had a theme. One was "You never arrived." You never arrived.
Chuck Noll said that?
Yeah, that was our theme. We had themes, he would come up, and one was "You never arrived." The other was there's no plateaus in life. You're going up or down. That was the thing. And a lot of times we like to say, "I made it." There's no plateaus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's from this book comes from that type of thinking that you never arrive. There's always a point beyond your grasp, and a lot of times we always look for that place of rest. And in my life, I think you're going up and down. There's no plateaus.
Great lessons from the great Chuck Noll.
Oh yeah, I mean there was many.
Yeah, I'm sure, and we're going to do that in another
Sure,
interview.
definitely. Mm-hmm.
But so it's interesting that you decide to write this book, and really it goes back to your big influences of Sister Gemma, Sister Mother Josepha, and your mother. And those three women were very impactful to you.
Oh, sure.
And now their lessons to this day are with you, and it's helping you to write this book. But did you want to write this book for any certain reason?
No, primarily when I first started off, a lot of times even your family, your children, they don't know who you are.
Yeah.
They really don't know or understand. So it is really for that, but it's also, I think, I played with a lot of great guys, a lot of great men and women in my circle that have perspectives, even like with my teammates. We get together, they all have perspective of what happened. It's kind of like the fish. The fish get bigger, they got a different story of what happened. And a lot of times, we don't look at, goes back, we read the lines, between the lines, behind the lines. We don't do that. And that's what I do out of my curiosity, out of my suspicions, out of my trying to survive. But I'm always bumping and running the answer. I never play zone.
You're a bump and run, shut down corner.
Yeah, well, they didn't call it shut down. Then Chuck Noll used to call it easy there at the office. Today they pay you for that. They didn't pay you for being.
They didn't pay you for that back then.
No, they didn't pay for. Right now they pay you for shutdowns. They pay you for breakups, whatever. Today they just say easy there at the office. When I was playing.
So. The steel curtain, was the steel curtain just the front four, or was the steel curtain the entire defense?
It was the entire defense, but a lot of times in the promotion of it, they would show the steel curtain. That was the curtain.
The front four.
The front four, yeah. So it was the marketing aspect of it then, and
I was telling a friend the other night, we were at a concert, and I was telling him that you were coming in for an interview. I said, he played in the steel curtain, and she said, no, that was the front four.
Well, yeah.
So I said, well, I'm going to find out from JT what the steel curtain really was.
Well, really, they call it this, but it was the steel curtain defense, and obviously then when they start to market it, then.
So you weren't in those marketing pictures?
Well, no. In the front four, no. Then they kind of reduced it to the steel curtain, the front four. But initially, it was the steel curtain defense. You know. And
that's how I remember.
Yeah, and that's how it was. But just from a marketing standpoint, back then the team controlled the marketing. Today, marketing is controlled by everyone. They control their own marketing, so it's a different situation. Yeah. But we were part of the steel curtain defense. Yeah, we look at the steel curtain defense because they first with the defense, and then they wean out the front four, for the most part. Yeah.
Well, Mr. J.T. Thomas, I am so happy that you came and joined us in our studio today. This is a first in several interviews that I want to do with you. This was your background, this was your upbringing, and we haven't even got into the Steeler stuff. And I know the Pittsburgh people want to hear the Steeler stuff.
Oh, definitely.
But I was just so fascinated by some of your story, and I'm glad that you would come on here and tell us your story. So I appreciate you coming on, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Lee. It was my pleasure. And like I say, it's inside there. And I think it's interesting that people get a broader view of not only me, but in terms of the Steelers, how this coming to fruition. It's much more than meet the eye.
It sure is. What's in between the lines, what's behind the lines. And so that's what we learned today.
Most
so
definitely.
thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, my friend. Definitely.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate you. Thank you for watching. I mean, growing up in Macon, Georgia, J.T. Thomas, I mean, it's not like growing up in Pittsburgh.
No.
So it was a whole different feel for what he had to go through to get to where he got. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I also want to leave you with this. If you, your mother, your brother, your sister needed an organ transplant to save your life, we all would say yes. So if we're going to all say yes, then we all need to be an organ donor and give the gift of life. I hope you enjoyed yourself today. Thank you for watching. I'm your host, Lee Adams. Take care of yourself.